Hello Malaysia and welcome to another edition of The Nation. My name is Jared Ratnam and thank you very much for joining us. Well, it is day 13 since the implementation of the GST, and there's been a lot of talk about the GST. There's also a lot of talk about how the GST is being implemented, how people are carrying out initiatives in order to make other people understand what the GST is all about, and how businesses are coping with the GST. So all in all, what we try to do, all media houses are trying to give out information in spurts just to make people understand time and time again. We find out that there's many glitches and many things that need to be understood. So every so often we get people to come on radio and TV and talk about these things. And today we're joined by Yap Shin Siang. She's a partner at YYC. Of course, it's a chartered accountant since 1974. She's here today to join us and to help us understand a little bit more about the GST. Of course, in the past few days, for 13 days has gone, like I said, and everyone's running out to buy stuff. And every time you come back, you're looking at your receipts and trying to make sense out of it. So, Yap, thank you very much for joining us. It's great to have you here. We've had you here before, and you're here back again. Of course, today we're going to delve a little bit more into the GST and to find out what it means for SMEs. And of course, we're going to make it understandable for all of us. I'm no economist, but we're going to try to understand this together. So with the GST, 13 days have gone by. What's your, after studying what has happened in 13 days, what's your word on it, so to speak?
Yep. We've been getting phone calls every day from our customers, from a lot of people, asking us whether this tax invoice is correct, how to enter this transaction, when they receive this invoice, can they claim? So we've been getting a lot of calls like that because over the past year, actually we've been doing a lot of training, but this is live now, and it's the actual implementation. So
GST in the flesh.
Exactly.
And it's here to stay.
Yep.
So with the training you've been doing for the past 1 year, of course, when you train people and when you continue training people, you see a sort of a pattern in the way people understand things or in the way people grasp things. So when it comes to SMEs or people in general who want to learn about the GST, what do you see as a pattern in understanding or in not being able to understand the GST?
Yep. It actually takes at least 3 to 4 days to actually go through what GST and to really understand it, because it's a new form of tax. So those who actually come for the 3 or 4 days training, they get it more now. But a lot of people tell me until it goes live, only they actually know what it's all about. And but the problem is a lot of SMEs, they left it until very last minute, the last week or a month before, or even the last week before.
I mean, and no one is to be blamed at this juncture. We're all like that in Malaysia. Where are you? I'm around the corner, but you've just left your house. So.
But the problem a lot of people are facing is maybe bosses don't have time for it. So their accounts clerk come, and after they come, in fact they get more stressed. And in fact, quite a few bosses have told me that after sending their accounts clerk for training, they have resigned because they think they won't be able to cope. So during our trainings, we tell them, it's here. So as an accounts clerk or exec or accountant, you have no choice but to deal with it. So I think in the streets now, there for the SME businesses, there's 2 types. One on the extreme end, they don't worry about GST at all, and they said the tax invoice, they still whatever format, up to them. On the other spectrum is those SMEs who are too worried, until some said want to close shop and things like that.
Right. So all in all, when you speak to your clients or people have a lot of them wrapped up their business simply because of the understanding or the tsunami of understanding of the GST?
They say they want to wrap up, but not many are wrapping up.
Not many are wrapping up. So which means it's still, although we're afraid, it's the fear of the unknown.
Exactly.
And now that we've seen it, people are slowly beginning to warm up to it. Do you think so?
Yes, definitely. In fact, some customs officers have gone to businesses, and I think some of the invoices are already in place. In fact, over the last 13 days, most of the issues are on the tax invoice itself. There are still people doing chops, like GST number chop. name and address chop. So it makes it very difficult because the level of understanding for the different SMEs is different. Some already know what to do, some have invested in systems that they've prepared. But on the other hand, there are a lot of people who are still doing things that they are not supposed to. And every day still calling us to say, can we still do this and that? And some even calculate GST wrongly.
Right.
Because for GST is business to business, so if your suppliers are not GST ready or your customers are not GST ready, they're going to affect your business.
But in understanding the GST, the way the tax is calculated, I think there's just so many problems which come from that. And when you say there are tax exempt stuff or goods that are exempted from this tax, people, there's always a story that the goods might be exempt from tax, but the lorry that brought the goods here and this and that, how do you explain this very simply?
Okay, there are 3 types, So the first one is standard rated, whereby everything you buy there's GST, everything you sell there's GST. The second and the third type is more confusing, the zero rated. For example, books is zero rated. But we need to know which type of books are zero rated. Textbooks is zero rated.
Textbooks as in school textbooks?
School's textbooks. So, for example, stationery is not zero rated. So we had a printing company calling us and asking, they print textbooks, but they are not the producers of the textbooks. They just do the printing service. So they asked us whether they should be standard rating it or zero rating it. So that's why we said it should be standard rated. So, and the exempt ones are also very complicated because as a developer, for example, for residential properties, they cannot charge. But the contractors who do the work, they have to charge them GST. So if an SME or a business just have a very general understanding, they won't be able to get all these technicalities and details.
And with these technicalities and details, do you think in say 6 months or a year from now, it would be, generally there'll be a general understanding as to how it works? Do you think that process will kick in sooner than we think?
Definitely. These are teething problems. I believe if it's handled properly and if everyone puts in the effort to go through this, and if we all get the right information, I believe all this will be sorted out. Hopefully in 6 to 12 months, like you mentioned. Even overseas, it's like that. Everywhere where GST was first implemented, they do take 6 to 12 months to smoothen out.
Of course, part of the confusion is politicians on both sides of the spectrum coming out and having things to say which further muddles up your thinking or the way we understand the text. So when you see comments coming from both sides of the divide, do you think this is contributing towards the confusion?
Yes, definitely.
As a tax person?
Yes, I think in a way there are too many people speaking up on this matter. I think definitely if there is one general one party just speaking up would be good enough. Maybe from customs is good enough, because too many comments definitely is confusing everyone, and everyone is confused as it is already.
Everyone's confused. So with the implementation now, does training still continue for SMEs? Do they still come in for training?
They come in less now, but they call up a lot. We have a phone support service, so they call up
must be
every
a nightmare
day.
Yes,
there, my poor colleagues. We have every time picking up phone calls and asking almost the same questions, but we still have to go through with that.
But that's the thing. I mean, now everyone's calling up and getting more information. Everyone wants to try to every time there's a problem, and that problem can start from. Say now there's a problem, 5 minutes from now there'll be another problem, so you'll call back again. So each time you're dealing with someone who's helping you over the phone, you need to be a little relaxed, because most of us get really upset and we too hasten when we talk about these things, or we get irate too fast. I certainly do receive calls at radio. We receive calls about the GST too, and when we can't answer it, they're like, what? You don't know. It's quite a nightmare, and it's pretty challenging. But that's the other thing also. With understanding the GST, we need to start from the basics again. We say, why do we start understanding? When we talk about the GST, we start from zero. Then we start talking about it. Can't we just talk about the problems? We can, but we need to go back and really understand where we're coming from. The GST, the implementation, and let's start with that. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So, what is the GST for those of us who are still finding it hard to grasp the idea of the GST?
Okay. Basically, GST is a consumption tax. 160 countries worldwide already implemented this. We are one of the countries that is implementing it now. For GST, as long as your company's 1 year sales is more than 500,000, you need to register and charge GST. And surprisingly, quite a lot of companies did not register on time, and so they have faced with a penalty.
Same thing's going to happen to our taxes this month.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll all be going to file it very late.
Yeah. So once you are GST registered, if you are making a standard rated supply, everything you sell, you have to charge 6% GST. Everything you buy, your supplier will charge you GST if they are GST registered, but you can claim it back from the government. So basically, everything you sell is called output tax. The 6% is called output tax. You have to pay that to customs. Every 6% that your supplier charge you, that is called input tax. You can claim it back.
Right.
So once a month or once every 3 months, depending on the size of your company, you will have to knock off your output and your input, and you pay the balance to the customs. Or some companies, they do get a refund from customs.
Okay, we want to delve into SMEs today. Yeah?
Sure.
When we take a break, we're going to come back and talk about that. But for for those of us who are not tax savvy, just the general public.
Yep.
Okay. Now we look at receipts, we don't know anything at all. Or
Yep.
some of us do. Let's not generalize. Some of us do. Some of us don't know what we see in the receipts. I'm just totally blind to all these things. Well, when we look at receipts, what do we need to look out for?
Yep. First of all, look at whether that restaurant or that company or
Restaurant. Let's all of us, get fleeced by restaurants all the time.
charge you 6% GST, and if they do, they will have to have a GST number on top of the tax invoice.
Right.
And you can actually check online to see whether they are properly registered or not. Because what we're very worried is companies not registered but charging us GST.
Right.
Yeah.
But do you think there are bogus companies out there charging
Definitely.
GST? That's definitely will be happening. Isn't it?
There would be. That's happened in other countries before.
Right.
So that is why our customs website actually have a place where you can key in and you can check whether that GST numbers correlates to that business itself.
Right.
Yeah.
So like they say in Bahasa Melayu, some of us have to be rajin. We see that number. We need to actually check. Just check to see if this company is actually registered to collect taxes. Now, with the 6% that we're paying at Mamat stalls, I like to talk about Mamat stalls because that's where most of us end up for our very unhealthy meals.
Yeah.
What's this service tax all about?
Actually, service tax has been in Malaysia for a while, and it's
no one kind of understood it.
Yeah, it's charged by hotels. It's charged by even Mamat stores, as well as restaurants.
Right.
It's a service charged by the restaurant, and what some restaurants do is they split the service charge to their staff, but I believe some don't. So it's a restaurant's policy.
Right.
Yeah.
And what about companies or restaurants that always tell us that we are absorbing the GST? Can that happen?
Yes, that can happen if they don't increase price, if the price of the menu remains the same before and after GST. In fact, there are quite a few companies.
Genuine cases?
I believe so,
Yeah.
But we do have to check before and after price. There are quite a few retailers as well as restaurants who goes on to say that they will adopt the GST.
Right.
Yep.
Right. So that's some good news.
Yep.
Well, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to come back and find out more about the GST. We'll be talking about SMEs, and we hope to give you more of an insight to what this means for SMEs and things they should look out for, you should look out for if you're an SME. Joining me in the studio is Yap Shin Siang. She's a partner at YYC, Chartered Accountants since 1974. We're going to come back with more information for you shortly. Stay with us.
Ayah, nak kunci kereta. Budin dah habis cuci ni.
Rajinnya anak ayah. Nak ambil ni.
Tak apa ayah. Budin ikhlas tolong ayah ni.
Terima kasih Encik. Kalau Encik tolong saya, tak tahu apa saya nak buat.
Jangan macam ni, Encik. Saya ikhlas. Lagipun, kita kan sama-sama rakyat Malaysia. Kita saling membantu.
Ini rezeki pedagang Encik. Dah pun diluluskan.
Terima kasih, Encik. Wah, cakap betul Encik buat kerja ya. Jom, Encik, saya belanja makan.
Encik, ni memang tugas saya. Lagipun saya dah dibayar gaji untuk semua ni. Saya tak harapkan balasan.
Hello Malaysia and welcome back to The Nation. I'm Jared Ratnam. We're talking about the GST, and of course with the GST there are different areas that needs to be talked about. Today we're talking about SMEs. We're talking to Yap Shin Xiang. She's a partner at YYC Chartered Accountants, and she's trying to give us more insights into the GST and what it means for SMEs. Shin, coming back to what we're talking about, we talked about the general public a while ago. Now we want to try to narrow it down to SMEs.
Yeah.
So with SMEs, based on your opinion, what are the common mistakes or misunderstandings that are faced by SMEs while dealing with the GST? And can you share with us what SMEs can do to adopt better systems?
Okay. First of all, for SMEs, I like to also highlight that actually the most urgent thing that needs to be addressed now is a proper raising a tax invoice, because what authorities are looking at now is tax invoice, and so first of all, the latest changes, tax invoice from end of April onwards needs all to be typed. Cannot even be handwritten anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
It can't be a handwritten.
In the past,
but we did know prior to all this,
Yeah.
handwritten ones were acceptable.
Yes.
Now it's not.
Okay. So it was acceptable. Customs did say because of technicalities, they did allow it. Okay. So, but even if it's handwritten, it needs to be there needs to be a letterhead, and that needs to be all pre-printed with the GST number, the company's name, and etc. The details can be handwritten. Okay. Now, but the thing is, for the recent announcement made by Customs is, even if you want to handwrite after 30th April, you can't do it anymore.
Right.
You
We're running some slides
Yep.
here. Can you just common mistakes on
Yep.
GST? Can we roll the next slide, please?
Yeah. Okay. So
Yeah, as you were saying.
yeah. So one of the common mistakes, if you can see that, they chopped the GST number. They made up a rubber stamp and chopped on it, and so Customs does not allow that because that can be easily manipulated.
Right.
Because we have to remember, for GST, input tax is you can claim back. So any tax invoice is like money now,
Right.
you can claim back the 6%.
Right.
So therefore, they do not allow manipulation of the tax invoice, and now to the extent that it needs to be typed after 30th of April.
Right.
So a tax invoice needs to be very proper, typed and all. Okay. So another mistake is, for this second example, the GST is
Can we
not
go
shown
back to
them.
the second one? Yeah.
The GST amount is not shown. So even if companies say they want to absorb the GST, they have to show out how much is the 6% GST. So in that case, so that was not done.
That was not done.
Yeah.
But with coming up with a chop for the GST,
Yeah.
Who came up with that idea?
The businesses themselves.
The businesses themselves.
Because they have pre-printed too many invoices,
Right.
so they don't want to waste paper.
Right.
So they said, okay, can we just do a chop? And so we've been telling businesses you can't do that. But there are a lot more who have not received that information.
Right.
Or they still trying their luck, I'm not sure. So therefore they have done chops and things like that. And even if you go to some hardware shops, they even draw out, let's say they buy a table, instead of writing table, they draw it out.
Yeah.
Because the educational level maybe is not to a certain extent, so therefore they do have difficulties raising proper tax invoice.
they have difficulties.
difficulties. Or some it's written in Chinese, so you know it's not translated, so
Right.
it's not acceptable under GST now.
Right.
Yep.
Right. So everything has to be printed out,
Yeah.
and the printing out of these invoices should come under a software of some sort, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So there was also a lot of complaints with regards to people having to pay too much for some software system
Yeah.
within companies, especially SMEs.
Yeah. Yeah, to deal with the invoicing, they will probably need a POS system for retailers. So yeah, it's not cheap an investment compared to handwriting, of course.
Right.
But that's something they would need to look into, and it would help in the long term. Yeah. So going back to that case just now, so I think tax invoice is the number one issue that needs to be
Right.
addressed.
So if tax invoice comes in as the number one issue, what are the other issues?
Yeah. The others are, for example, the tax codes.
Mm-hmm.
For each, GST is different from income tax. Income tax is your total sales or your total income minus your expenses, then you work out your income tax. For GST, it's transaction by transaction. So every transaction needs to have a tax code. And
Right.
in Malaysia, we have 23 tax codes. The GST regime requires
23 tax codes.
23. Of course, not all is to be used, but because there's so many, it's confusing.
Right.
So therefore, each, let's say this sales item, is it standard rated or is it zero rated? They need to determine that upfront. And for the expenses, is it claimable or not claimable? If it's claimable, it's TX. If
Right.
it's not claimable, it's BL, for example. But there are
TX and BL.
yeah, good. You learned two already. So, but there are a lot of businesses. They still don't know which one is claimable, which one is non-claimable.
Right.
As well as in certain cases, they ask salary. How about salary? Must there be a tax code and things like that? Yeah.
So there must and this
CN, DNs.
yeah, right.
Which
So
tax
there's
code?
23 different codes, and you say 23 is a lot for people to understand.
Yes, yes. The ones that are commonly used, at least 10 to 15.
Right.
At least 10, yeah.
Okay, so why do we need 23 different codes? Is it because of the zero-rated stuff and all the what do you call it, tax-exempt stuff that's come into play that brings about these 23 codes?
Yes, actually, having 23 codes is good because it really breaks it down into smaller items. For example, import is one code, IM. So therefore, let's say your company imports, then it's very easy for anyone to see whether proper GST has been paid. But like I said, the problem is because there are so many to start with, people get confused
Right.
which tax code to use. And that's when they key it into the accounts. If you key wrongly the tax code, it will enter into the wrong part. It will not be captured correctly
Right.
into the GST return, which
Right.
is 0
so
and 3.
if something like that happens, or
Yeah.
an error like that
Yeah,
happens,
yeah.
can that be reversible?
Okay, so let's say the accounts clerk is keying in with the tax code and it goes to the GST 03 GST return. If it's checked and properly verified and somebody picks up the mistake, then no problem. But we're talking about volume here,
Right,
because
right.
every transaction has a tax code. So if it's not picked up, then it will be submitted in the end of the following month.
Right.
Okay, and if it's submitted, then then you find out later.
So
a
it's
mistake.
submitted on a monthly basis. The taxes are submitted on a monthly basis, and each entry has to be checked and double checked.
Yeah, for a company that is 5 million, making sales of 5 million and above for 1 year, it's submitted monthly. So for example, for April GST, the companies will be submitting latest end of May. So a lot of companies will be doing their first round of submission before the end of May. For companies that are less than 5 million, it's 3 months once. So let's say April, May, June, they submit end of July.
Right.
So like I said, if you enter wrongly and nobody checks through,
Right.
then there will be a mistake. I think
Right.
it's quite easy to make a mistake as well.
Right. So while teaching, training people to be GST ready, you also need to train them how to troubleshoot.
Correct.
Do you teach them troubleshooting?
We
there?
teach them how to reconcile back. For
Right.
example, once your sales is calculated, then we make a reconciliation with your GST. Does it tie up things like that. Yeah.
Right. So there is a system towards that. Once something has been entered wrongly, it can be changed or reconciled as such.
Before they submit, they have to reconcile once to make sure everything is in order.
Right.
But we're very worried that there might be people who may not to leave it to the last minute. There won't be time.
But
to
if it's going to be done on a monthly basis, it has to be checked, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it has to be checked. So this month is probably the month of reconciliation or GST reconciliation.
This month is the month of raising tax invoice. The next month.
Next month.
Yeah.
So raising tax invoice first, and then next month will be a reconciliation. Now,
Yes.
only after the first month will we be able to tell how the system is faring for SMEs.
Correct.
Or generally.
This month is for the bigger companies. The end of next month for the really smaller SMEs, it will be by July that we know. Yeah, I believe it's after a few returns whereby it will be smoothened out.
Right.
Yeah.
In running training programs or getting companies ready for the GST, I'm sure you've done studies on how it fared or how training programs were put across in other countries.
Yeah.
Did they have with training? Was the education level higher? So let's say in Australia, getting them GST prepared, it would have been different. This happened in '98, I know.
Yeah. It happened a long time ago. I think in any country, mistakes still happen. In Australia, even though they went through training, right, they also didn't claim input tax. Some companies, input tax for millions not claimed for
Right.
certain companies.
Right.
Even in Singapore until now, certain block input tax items people still claim. For example, passenger car. Because I think there is a turnover in any business, and for example, your accounts clerk or accountant will change. So if they are not trained again, then they would not know, because GST is not taught in universities or in
Right,
schools as a
right.
subject. Yeah.
Right.
So
But should that be done?
I definitely think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll come back and discuss a little bit more about that. Should it be also introduced to universities? That's a little something to discuss about. We're going to come back with that shortly, right here at The Nation. Stay with us. Jared Ratnam with you.
Halo, apa kabar pemirsa? Salam dari Jakarta. Sebuah program kerjasama Kantor Berita Indonesia Antara dengan Kantor Berita Malaysia bernama kembali hadir menjumpai Anda.
Menongkah batasan masa, mengupas isu semasa, menjadi saluran pelbagai suara, segalanya baru dan benar di Berita Bernama TV.
Welcome back to the GST show on The Nation. I'm Jared Ratnam. I was meant to say The Nation. We're talking about GST, but forget about that. We've got Yap Shin Siang. She's a partner at YYC, and she's here to help us out with understanding of GST, especially if you're an SME. Well, of course, we're with the SMEs that are now having problems, new SMEs that are coming up. Do you think they will be prepared for what's to come?
Because the threshold is 500,000, so I think a lot of people don't want to get ready until they almost reach it. Yeah, so another common question that I get is if I'm starting a business now, I've not reached the threshold 500,000, do I need to register?
Right.
So the answer is you don't need until when you reach. So at any 12 months when you reach or you're 430 or 450, that's the time to go and register for GST.
430, 400, or not 499.
No, don't wait until. It needs time for approval, and
Right.
once you get the number, only you can start charging GST.
So you need to have that, once again, that registration number,
Yep.
which everyone can check. Apparently, you can go to the website and
Yes.
put the number in and see if it's legit or not. Well,
Correct.
with SMEs too, other problems that SMEs are facing at this point.
Yeah, back to the common mistakes.
Common
first,
mistakes, yeah.
One of the areas that a lot of SMEs don't understand is they just think that it's the trade sales that they need to charge GST. But actually, a lot of businesses have a lot of other income.
Right.
For example, they have rental from commercial property, so they don't know that that needs to be charged GST as well.
Right.
They also have commission received, as well as many other types of income like traveling, transport, disbursements, and it adds up to a sum. So a lot of SMEs, they
All these odds and ends, so to speak.
exactly
Yeah.
other than line. So when those who come to attend our courses, then they'll say, all these also need to charge. Even selling scraps, selling besi
Right.
buruk, all these, they are your company's income and therefore need to charge GST as well. Going back to restaurants, the service charge.
Right.
We've been to quite a few restaurants just to check out. A lot of service charge is not charged GST, so that's wrong. So when we tell the business owners, they don't get it.
Right.
They say, are you sure? So that's why I say the level of understanding is not totally there yet.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's say, because service charge, for those of us who understand or don't understand what service charge is, most of us are being made to understand that service charge is meant to be for the service that's being dished out by the restaurant, so to speak.
Yes, it is. But the restaurant takes it as their income first. Then
Yeah.
they only give it to their waiters or waitresses.
Right.
So that is income.
Or so it's not going out as income
direct.
to the waiter.
It's not a direct payment out. They receive it first,
Right.
and then they give it to their.
It's interesting. I went to a Japanese restaurant the other day, and for some reason, with the GST, I was charged 10%. So I didn't understand what was going on. Quietly paid the bill, and I said, "Never going there again."
Yeah, I think there is a lot of confusion now. A lot of people think that after GST, the 10% won't be charged.
Right.
But the 10% is actually service charge going to the restaurant.
Right.
Previously, there was 10% plus 6% service tax.
Right.
Now it's 10% plus 6% GST.
So it's still 16%.
still 16.
Any which way you look
In fact,
at it.
it's a bit more because GST is charged on top of service charge. Yeah.
Devil and the deep blue sea. Here we go again. So coming back to common mistakes
Yep.
of SMEs.
Yep.
Yeah.
Another common mistake is I think once we settle output, there's also input. So for input, right, if your company wants to claim input tax, you have to make sure the tax invoice is in order. And if the amount is more than 500 ringgit and GST is more than 30, you need a full tax invoice.
Right.
Full tax invoice needs your company name and address. Boss's name is not good enough. Employee's name is not good enough. So therefore, you need to, a lot of SMEs need to train their
Right, so tax
people.
invoice.
Yes.
So it needs to be latched onto an address, a legit address.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So amount below 500, GST below 30, a simplified tax invoice is good enough. No name, no address. So let's say you go restaurant to eat. If it's less than 500 and the company wants to claim, simplified tax invoice is good enough. But if your company wants to claim, the SME owners, they want to claim on any amounts more than 500 ringgit, they'll need to ask the restaurant to come up with a full tax invoice in the name of the company and in their address as well.
Right.
So we've experienced some restaurants, they don't know how to issue that. They can't issue that.
Right.
So that's going to be an issue
So
as well.
then they come back to you again. And can these problems be solved?
So we ask the customers, our customers, to either go and request for full tax invoice or don't claim.
Right.
Some of them are pretty upset that they can't claim, but some have just taken the stance that let
Right.
it run smoothly first.
If that's
Yeah.
happening internally, if there's so much problems with regards to this, all these glitches happening for small companies, What about SMEs doing import-exports? It would be a nightmare.
Yes, definitely. Because a lot of people for exports, they just think that as long as they export, it is zero rated. But actually, customs look at K2 form, K-Dua.
Okay.
So some companies, they have...
okay, what's the K-Dua for those of us?
It's a customs declaration form when you export. So what happened is we've realized that some companies, they get their overseas supplier come into Malaysia, overseas customers coming into Malaysia, they order the goods, they arrange for their own transportation. So the K2 is under the customers and not under the company itself. And in this case, they won't be able to zero rate because they don't have the supporting documents.
Right. Right.
Another example is, let's say the container is shared between two companies, and therefore the K2 is either in the name of a freight forwarder or in one of the companies.
Right.
But for GST purpose, it needs to be in the company that is zero rating it, or else they won't be able to zero rate the product. So again, this technicality makes a lot of difference, because if you charge GST on your exports, then will your customer be still buying from you?
Right.
If they don't decide they don't want to buy from you, then this company will need to be absorbing the GST, which is a hit to the business as well. So that's for exports.
So technically, if you're exporting too, there is a GST.
Yeah,
there is a GST, and it can be absorbed by the company.
It can be.
Yeah.
Okay, for exports, there can be GST if, for the examples that I mentioned just now, they come over into Malaysia to pick up the goods and things like that. I have another case whereby this company, they bill to Brunei, for example, they invoice to Brunei, but the goods is delivered to Miri, and that's still within Malaysia. So that is still subject to 6% GST, even though you're billing an overseas customers. So there are all these details to look into. And if SMEs are not careful, actually, we're not only talking about SMEs, a lot of companies, if they don't delve into the details, they may get caught, because...
Well, for the bigger boys, it's no problem, simply because they've got good tax people working for them on their payroll. And they've got consultants, they've got tax people working for them. So
they can afford it.
They can afford it. So these problems only apply to companies or people who can't afford having the expertise in their workforce or their panel. So
that's right. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Right. So when they come to you for help, or they want your services. So with the GST too, for people who deal with accounting, it's the charges seem to change too. How does GST affect you?
Oh, okay. We've been very busy the last year because we've been...
Busy means making money.
A lot of work too. So we've been very busy last year getting ready, getting our customers as well as a lot of SMEs ready for businesses, for GST. Now, for accounting, we find that there are a lot of people looking to outsource their accounting now because they can't find anyone to do. There is a lack of accountants.
That's it. Okay, so... for those of you who wanted that son or daughter of yours to become a doctor or surgeon, and now let's...
I would think so, yes. Less hours compared to surgeons. So there is a lacking, and in fact, even if they graduated and all, they don't study, back to the subject just now, they didn't study GST in school. So therefore, they will need to read up about it. So a lot of people outsourcing their accounting services, and a lot of accounting firms cannot cope, because there's already so much work. So now every entry they enter, they have to enter 6% more. So for every transaction, and every 3 months or every 1 month they have to submit the GST. So therefore, definitely the charges have gone up. So I think it's no denying that the cost of businesses will go up.
The cost of businesses is definitely going to go up next year. Like it or not, it is going to rise. And what we thought was no more 16%, now it's just 6%, is definitely back to 16% or a little bit more.
That's only for restaurants.
For restaurants, but we'll need to deal with it though. But coming back to your training and the training you provide, saying after 3 days, the boss of the company comes up to you and says, Sheena, my boys still don't understand what you're saying. What do you do then?
Okay, so we tell them, we offer them a few services. We can come and check to see whether your GST is in order. Or number 2, we have phone support. In fact, a lot of accountants,
But phone support can only help to a certain... they have to be calling you for every little thing. But like saying after 2-day course and they're still in a stupor, what happens then?
Yeah. So for those that are extremely don't understand GST, then we will need to step in and help them with to churn out the GST return. We can go there to train them as well. But the phone support helps in the sense that some accountants, they sort of get it, but they are not very sure when it comes down to the actual transaction. So they want a reassurance. So before they make a mistake, they don't want to cause their boss penalties and all. So before they make a mistake, they call us to make sure that it's in order. Because the penalty is quite heavy.
The penalty is heavy.
If there is an incorrect return, it is 30,000 or director go to jail. So that's why a lot of SMEs...
30,000 or director go to jail.
I don't think that that's the intention to put everyone behind bars, but that has caused a lot of fear amongst the SME owners, because of course, and not only to the owners, to the accountants as well, because they don't want a mistake that will cause something so detrimental to the company. So but customs did say for the first 2 years, case by case basis, it's going to be friendly audits, so educational
so
based.
there's
We really
sort of a
hope.
buffer,
Correct.
before they bring on the hard stuff. So we're going to take another break, and when we come back, we'll definitely try to give you a bit more information and wrap this up. We're talking about the GST and, of course, little problems that are being faced by SMEs. Joining us today is, of course, Yap Shin Siang, and she is a partner at YYC. We'll also come back and talk a little bit about YYC, give a bit of a plug when we come back.
Okay, thank you.
Stay with us right here at The Nation, Bernama TV.
batasan masa, mengupas isu semasa, jadi saluran pelbagai suara, segalanya baru dan benar di Berita Bernama TV.
Welcome back to The Nation. We're currently talking about the GST and how it affects SMEs. Joining me in the studio is Yap Shin Xiang, and she's a partner of YYC. They've been around since 1974. As promised, we're going to talk a little bit about YYC in a short while. But in the meantime, going back to SMEs and what we're talking about, well, we've covered most everything we can cover. There are many odds and ends that need to be talked about. And off the top of your head, can you remember any of these things?
Yeah, I think some SMEs, they have actually taken GST to their advantage.
Right.
I think it's very smart of them because we
use the GST to your advantage.
Yeah, in a way, because some they have thought that GST is coming, so they have planned and strategized earlier on. So one of the things that they are looking at is to absorb the GST, and they've made big announcements that we will absorb. If you've seen on the advertisements and newspapers, a lot of people say GST is here, don't worry, we are absorbing it. And I think that is that's smart because
is it
it's
smart
a
or a
fact.
noble gesture?
I don't think it's noble.
Okay, so we now know that it's not a noble gesture.
I think it's
I like flat out answers like that. Yeah,
it's a way to boost sales.
Yeah.
If I'm a consumer and this company says that they will absorb the GST, chances are I'll go to that company more than the other one. You know, so whereas there is still a lot of company that does not understand GST, and they have increased prices significantly, not just to cover their costs, but they have, some people have told me GST is 6 plus 6 plus 6, 18%, and we've seen that happening. So even though the Trade and Domestic Department is going into it to look at whether that anti-profiteering is carried out, but as consumer, I mean, in a business point of view, if your company just keeps increasing prices, I think in the long run they may lose out to businesses who are actually looking into strategizing to absorb the GST. Yeah, so I think GST is a game changer in that sense.
Right.
If you can cope well, you understand it, you use it to your advantage. In the long run, the business may even benefit from it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, hearing from people like you is, sometimes when we feel afraid and we talk to people who know about these things, it makes us feel a little better. Well, moving away from SMEs, so for us, for those of us who are really fearing what's to come and what we would see in the next year or two or next 5 years, what would you tell us?
Yep. In the economy, for the economy, when GST is first implemented, the first 6 months is going to be soft, but after that, things should return back to normal. I always tell my customers, what are you going to do after GST? They said we're going to stay at home and not go out and going to cook and just refuse to go out. But how long can that last? And when we go out, we still see there's still a lot of people in the malls. There's still a lot of people in the restaurants. So I think in the long run, it's going to go back to normal.
Over the weekend, there's been a lot of advice about cooking. Huh?
Yeah. So in the like other countries, 6 months. Things go back to normal.
Yeah.
I think in a way it's good because there's also talks about Malaysians spending more than they should. And so in that sense, GST causes us to think a bit more before we buy something, and we sign on the credit cards.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
because the loans in the end will also crush the economy. So so my personal view is be positive lah. I mean, it's already here. There are so many things that we can complain about.
I don't know if you can answer this question.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're going to move out of your...
Okay.
But a lot of people are saying, the GST should be taken off. It shouldn't be implemented. What do you think they mean when they say stuff like this? Yeah.
Okay. Now, we have seen 160 countries already implement GST. As a tax system, I think it's okay.
Right.
Of course, at this stage also, I believe it provides a more stable source of income compared to petroleum income. And for the nation's long-run growth and all, we do need this sort of stability in that sense. And as we know also, our country has been making deficit for many years. But also it's very important, we really hope that after GST.
And that few of us who are paying our taxes every year can't be that same few paying the taxes for the next 50 years. Yeah?
Exactly.
Yeah.
In a way, it's more equitable, it's fair. When you buy more, you spend more, you pay more GST.
Right.
And I believe that there will be more rakyat asking questions as well.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you have to be accountable for,
Exactly.
when you collect these monies, there needs to be accountability, and there always needs to be accounts of some sort when it comes to it. But at the end of the day, the GST is a good thing. I mean, a lot of people, there are a lot of naysayers at this point, and for sure, in a country there'll be the government and there'll be the opposition, and everyone will have their say about certain things. But all in all, if 160 countries have already implemented it, there must be something good about it.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. Well, from there, let's talk about YYC. You guys been around since 1974, so you've been an accountant from a very tender age of what,
I'm not. It's actually from the partners have started the company in 1974. One of the partners is my dad, and so he has brainwashed me from a young age to become an accountant. So we have been helping a lot of SMEs since the start. And what we are different from others is we always believe that we want to help. So we want to give you the advice. In fact, we are so worried that you are not ready, our customers are not ready for GST. 2 years ago, we actually already looked very deeply into GST. We got the customs exams, we have the cert. We even went to Singapore to study in detail what it's all about, how they implemented it, so that when we come back, when we roll it out for our customers, we teach them in the simplest way and they can understand what it's all about. And there's implementation, hopefully without glitches. So we always believe in giving our customers the extra. And last year, it was all about getting them ready. This year is all about how to handhold them throughout the process.
So hand-holding now, how many hands are you holding?
Through phone.
Okay. How many companies or SMEs have signed up for your services?
We have trained 1,000 companies to get ready.
1,000 companies?
Yeah.
And these 1,000 companies call you every day?
We have about...
There's the smart ones and the dumb ones.
Our existing audit and tax clients, we give it to them for free. So there's about 1,000 over companies calling us every day.
1,000 over companies. So now it's the hand-holding process. And after that, they're going to be on their own. And looking at what you've done or what your company has done and the system you have implemented in teaching, would you say it's a good, easy to understand system?
Yeah, definitely. It's we do our best to actually make it easy for them to understand, so that when they go back, they can implement. We started by helping out quite a few big companies get ready for GST, but that is a big project, and therefore, when we look back at our core, it's always to help SMEs. So
you've got the SME Recognition Award, and this is in 2013.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay. So we because all this while our focus has been very much on SME, so therefore we got the award from the SME organization.
Right, and has that helped?
That
receiving an award.
Definitely. That has given us some motivation, because it's like giving ourselves a pat in the back and to say that's where we want to focus on, and that we want to do more there. And so therefore, back to SMEs, that's where we came up with a program to help them, because we can't go into 1,000 companies to help them get ready for GST. That would be very expensive and not practical. So that's why we came up with modules. So we have 3 to 4 modules to help them to get ready, with many examples. And so now this month we are busy with the refresher classes, because they have finished the modules, but they said, Shin, what if we still don't understand? So we've given out this refresher class for free.
Refresher class for free. So to all clients of YYC, refresher class, our classes starts very soon. Well, we've got about a minute left. I'm going to give you camera 2 to speak to the nation. Your message about the GST.
Okay, thank you. GST is here. It's been it started for 13 days. So I think we as businesses, as SMEs, we need to really get into the gear. If we are not ready by now, we have to really get ourselves sorted, because it's something serious. If we do not implement it well, it may be detrimental to our business. For consumers, I think it's we play a role in this as well, because we are the ones who are paying for GST in the end. So I see a lot of consumers actually looking through tax invoices, making good complaints. So I believe if all of us play a part and play our partner, this GST can be run successfully.
Fantastic. Well, if you need more information or if you need advice, what you can do is go to www.yycadvisors.com. That's www.yycadvisors.com, and you'll get all the information you need about Shin and the people at YYC, a partner from YYC, Yap Shin Siang, joining us today to give us some information about the GST. Thank you very much.
Thank
It's an
you.
honor
All
and a
right.
pleasure having you.
You too. Thank you.